Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, I want to bring to your attention that I was originally charged with a felony, okay? And so I just want to make that crystal clear that I was charged with a felony. And what started the entire thing, it was 316.075 in parentheses 1C. And that's what's it's a section 05075 traffic control devices. And I'm not going to go into reading the entire thing, but I just want to make you aware that they didn't even prove that I ran the red light. And the judge is just going as if I do not have the right of presumption of innocence. And one of the last things that's written under that section, it says that even if it was proven that I had ran the red light or that E and I had ran the red light, it reads like this. It reads, a violation of this section is a non-criminal traffic infraction, punishable pursuant to Chapter 318 as either pedestrian violation or if the infraction resulted from an operation of a vehicle as a moving violation. So I want to make that perfectly clear. Now I'd like to go into the second charge, which was 316.1935 in parentheses 2. Fleeing or attempting to elude a law enforcement officer, abrogated fleeing or eluding. Now, I'm going to read you the jury instructions for that exact charge. To prove the crime of fleeing to elude law enforcement officer, the state must prove the following three elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, this is actual citation from my court documents that I got from legal authorities, okay? And it's word for word. And it reads as following. I actually grabbed the definition of motor vehicle under the Westlaw Dictionary. And it reads as follows. It says, a motor vehicle is a self-propelled vehicle not operated upon the rails or guideways, but not including any bicycle, motorized scooters, electric personal assistive mobile device, swamp buggy, or moped. Now that's actually from the 316.00 in parentheses 21. That's the definition of a motor vehicle, which says not including any bicycles. Now, we're going to the statutes of fleeing and eluding, back to that. And it's 316.1935, which it says the following. Fleeing a law enforcement officer means the defendant was operating a motor vehicle upon the streets or highway in Florida. 2. A duly authorized law enforcement officers ordered the defendant to stop or remain stopped. 3. The defendant, knowing she had been ordered to stop by a duly authorized law enforcement officer, either willfully refused or failed to stop the vehicle in compliance with the order or having stopped the vehicle, willfully fled in a vehicle in attempt to elude the officer. Now, I just want to go back and just recap that so we can break it down in each element. And ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge as to what you saw in part 1. Okay? The defendants were operating a motor vehicle upon the streets or highway in Florida. Were we operating a motor vehicle? Now, we know from the definitions of a motor vehicles within their own laws that it does not include any bicycle. So that way, for number 1, that's not met. Number 2, a duly authorized law enforcement officer ordered the defendant to stop or remain stopped. Now, we've explained that the cars were unmarked. They didn't have the jurisdictions of any police department. The people in the car were in civilian clothes. So number 2 obviously is not met. Number 3, the defendant knowingly he or she had been ordered to stop by a duly authorized law enforcement officer, either willfully refuse or fail to stop the vehicle in compliance with the order or having stopped the vehicle, willfully fled in a vehicle in attempt to elude the officer. None of those are met. We didn't know that they were officers, let alone authorized enforcement officers. We didn't willfully fail or to stop because we didn't know who they were. They were in unmarked cars, like I said, in civilian clothes. They could have been anybody. Further, I'll add, what were we fleeing from, if not for our own safety? And when you look at the judge and when you listen to the prosecutor, when you listen to the public defender, why are they not addressing each element like I'm just showing you now? I asked them if the elements were met. They ignored me. And she did not push the issue. She only pushes it so far. When I'm talking about she, I'm talking about the public defender, Autumn Page. She only pushes the issue so far. And then eventually what she's going to do, later on, you're going to see she's going to capitulate and allow me to go back in jail. Why? She has no personal interest very much in it. She gets to go home. Scott Amberstein gets to go home, and the state attorney gets to go home. But guess what? When E&I and others like E&I go to jail, the state makes beaucoup money. Finally, I was charged with resisting officers without violence. The statute was 843.02. Now, if you don't have the elements met for running the red light, that's a negative. If you don't have fleeing and eluding officers, you don't have the elements met for that, that's done. How can you have resisting officers without violence? What kind of sense does that make? Resisting officers without violence. Let's move on. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand that this was all a sham. And they get away with this almost every single day. Now, having said that, that's not to say that there aren't legitimate cases where people need to be charged, because I'm sure that there are. But they should not be so cavalier, nonchalant with people's lives. These have serious, dire consequences, and E&I will never be able to get those times back. So I'm going to let this roll, okay? So keep that all in mind while you watch the rest of the video. And when you watch them argue their points as to whether or not they should press charges or keep my brother and I in jail. And keep in mind also, we don't have a record. All right, let's roll the tape.
Now, let me hear from the state on the fleeing and eluding issue.
Judge, I've gone through the statute. There's nothing in the statute that requires it to be a motor vehicle that we're talking about here. Let me back that up. If you're using a bicycle on the road, all traffic laws apply to you.
So the fact that he went through an intersection with a solid red light means that he should have been ticketed with an infraction. I agree with you about your argument.
Correct. The part that rises to the level of fleeing and eluding is when the officers made contact with these individuals while they were in motion, lights, sirens on, and they ordered them to stop. And when they flagrantly disobeyed that order, told the officers they had no authority to detain them and stop them, that's when we cross that threshold.
Can the defense argue that this defendant didn't have to stop when the officer said, pull over? I don't think the defense can make that argument. That means that there is probable cause for the fleeing and eluding, And I agree with the state, that doesn't require a motor vehicle. Although the traffic infraction, which isn't charged, but if there is one, could be questionable.
Well, you can probably get away with that. They didn't charge it. It's a side.
Right, it's an academic issue.
Right.
But I believe that there is probable cause for the fleeing and eluding, and I believe that there is probable cause for the resisting arrest without violence. Now, whether the state decides to file formal charges against this defendant or not, I have no idea. That's not my decision. My decision is merely to decide whether he stays in jail or can bond out today, and I am gonna let him bond out today.
Your Honor, we're requesting an ROR due to the defendant's lack of priors and also due to the absurdity of this case.
That's an interesting legal argument.
Your Honor,
I've never heard it.
At the end of the day, this started out because they were riding their bikes against the sidewalk. Like,
No, I get it.
I am familiar with this man. I am familiar with his brother. The issue here.
We're not violent.
I do agree. I agree with this man. Like, the issue here is the officers.
Egos.
He's alleging that he's being hassled.
I believe that.
Okay.
I believe
Well,
it 100%.
I understand
Technically,
that
what
you
have
believe
is
it,
him.
and the state doesn't. So I'm going to let this matter go in front of Judge Miranda, and the state may file formal charges, and Judge Miranda will take it from here. My job is to decide whether he's going to stay in jail or get out on bond. I am going to set a bond. Now, how much
Excuse
of
me,
a bond?
there's something you may need to know.
How much of a
You may need to
bond?
know. You may need to know that I have personal matters I need to attend to, and I need to be released on my own cognizance so I can do that. You just let me know when you want me in court, I'll be there. There's no reason to post bond on this at all.
Your Honor, he does have a point. It is the presumption in the great state of Florida is
Does the
for
state
people
have an
to not-
objection to an ROR in this case?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, if he's CPS
Wow.
eligible, we have to
He is not PTS eligible.
stop Your Honor. That would not
I-
stop
I-
Your Honor from ordering it.
I understand that. I'm not gonna do that to them.
I mean, I
All
understand.
right,
this-
I'm gonna set a small bond in this case. I'm gonna set a $500 bond.
I don't have it. Nobody knows I'm in jail. I don't have it.
Right here, ladies and gentlemen, I was literally trying to enter a plea. I was trying to go home to take care of the family issues. The state wouldn't allow me to be on R&R. I don't understand where the state comes. There was no probable cause. Be that as it may, I was trying to enter a plea and give them my exemption so that I can go home. And he ignored me. And they were trying to do what's called a summary proceeding, which is it's like this. It's just literally trampling all over your rights because they just want to get this over with. It's not their life. They don't care. And ladies and gentlemen, if you ever catch yourself in a situation like this, please do not capitulate and just roll over just to get along. Please do not. Stand up for yourself. But once I said that I was willing to put in a plea, they knew that what would happen would be that the bond would have to be released to me. And I'd be able to go home. But they didn't want me to go home. They want me to fill in their jails. They have beds to fill. Quotas to me.
I'll tell you what, I'll enter a plea right now for the bond be released to me immediately. So I may be free to go home. I'll give you my exemption
Judge, what bond
immediately.
Stop. Judge, what are the counts? What is the bond for the two counts?
$250 on one and $250 on the other.
Would
for a
you also
total of
consider
$500.
releasing him to TAP? TAP is willing to take him. He has no priors except for a criminal.
Fine. Tap with an alternate bond.
If we're gonna do that,
Come on, sir.
can we have the standard bonds?
No. Emmanuel Charlemagne,
Okay.
is Emmanuel Charlemagne his brother? Is he the co-defendant in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Same ruling.
I'm here in special appearance, not general, not
Judge,
voluntary,
tap
claiming
alternate
all my
bond,
rights.
$250?
Would you stop? I'm here in special appearance, not
Judge, that's
general.
what you said?
Yes,
Administrator,
and
let me
we're
know when I can
done.
speak.
Mr. Charlemagne,
Okay,
you may not
Administrator.
speak.
No. R&R. Why can't I be released on R&R?
Roderick, Keith
Why can't I,
Ellis is the next case.
excuse me, why can't I be released on R&R?
Excuse me, sir, but you don't get to keep talking